honest answers to awkward questions with Lucy Maskell. Sponsored by Urban Saints.
You are tuned in to Premier Gospel Music for Life, and this is Awkward, the show that gives honest answers to awkward questions. My name's Lucy, and I'll be with you till 7 o'clock. Well, in today's show, I wanted to find out, what's it really like to be a PK? What's it really like to be a pastor's kid? You know, what's it like to grow up in church? And what's it really like to have a dog-collared dad? Well, that's why tonight's episode is called Confessions of a Pastor's Kid. So let me introduce to you my special guest, all the way from sunny Surbiton. It's Bethany Pease. How you doing, Bethany?
I'm good, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Brilliant. It was nice to have you here.
Thank you.
So tell the people more about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm 20 years old. I go to Hook Evangelical Church in Surbiton, and I currently work for the company Snog, which is a frozen yoghurt company. I serve the yoghurt and promote it as well.
Brilliant. Do you have a favourite flavour by any chance?
It's the original one, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for letting me know about Froyo. I love it. So you've written a lot about being a PK, about being a pastor's kid. What is your story? You've grown up in a church, like you said.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Okay, well, so all I've known all my life is being a pastor's kid. It was my dad's job the moment I was born. So it's been challenging, some parts of it, but other parts of it have been really rewarding. So the rewarding parts of it are you have a massive family unit around you. The church is your family. There's constantly people supporting you, praying for you, and that's great. Things that have been difficult are meetings. Your parents are quite busy quite a lot of the time, out with church people, and it can sometimes feel like your priorities and problems are bottom of the pile compared to those of the churches, but that's minority of the time.
Okay, and you have written a blog, haven't you? You've got your blog. Yes. Would you like to plug the blog at all?
I would. It's Bethany Confessions of a Pastor's Kid.blogspot.org.
Woo! Great. I think it's blogspot.co.uk because we're in the UK.
Oh, there
so
we go.
Yeah, check that out, guys. Bethany Confessions of a Pastor's Kid.blogspot.co.uk and breathe. Well, basically, Bethany, I am so glad to have you on the show because you've written so much about your experience, like you said, the good things and the bad things. So it's great having that family unit. I mean, tell me more about, you know, when you were younger. Have you always been in the same church with your dad and your mum, or?
Okay, no, we when I was younger, we were at a West Kilburn Baptist church.
Okay.
In North London. I don't really remember much of that because we moved to Surbiton when I was 3. So yeah, I don't really remember much of Kilburn, but what I do remember is they were supportive as well, and going to Hook, they've just welcomed us with open arms, really. Yeah.
Brilliant. And tell me more about what it's like to be a PK like now, because how old are you now?
I'm 20.
You're 20?
Yes.
The ripe old age of 20?
Yeah.
So I know you've got a lot of wisdom from your experience. So, like, what is the first thing that people struggle with being a PK? Because as you said you felt can be quite neglected. You feel like you've got a lot of problems, but also your pastor, your dad is dealing with other people's problems. So tell me more, like, your experience of that.
Yeah, so being a pastor kid can sometimes feel like you're in a goldfish bowl. That's the example I like to use. It can feel like the church is looking in on you and your life, and you have to sometimes perform to a certain level of, oh, I'm this good pastor's girl, I'm pastor's kid's girl kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
But on the other hand, where am I going with this?
Well, on the other hand, so one hand you feel kind of you've got to perform and be this good person.
You're in the goldfish bowl.
Yeah.
And that can make you sort of rebel a little bit because you don't want to have that pressure on you. You kind of want to be the outspoken, emotional person that you are, but you can't. Sometimes you feel that you can't put that on in church. You
can't express it. Is that because you feel again you've got to be perfect, or you feel you're going to be judged? Like what's the pressure?
Yeah, it is the whole, not necessarily being perfect, because hopefully everyone who is a Christian knows that nobody is perfect.
Woo.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, thank goodness.
So no, it's not the pressure to be perfect. It is more of a, you don't want to come across as the pastor's kid with trouble. You want to come I almost put the pressure on myself rather than the church putting the pressure on me.
Oh wow.
But I've only come to realise that through growing up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
That's okay.
I've already got a Facebook message. Shout out to Rebecca, who's listening in, who says, "Hi, I'm a pastor's wife, and I have two, kids, pastor's kids. One's 2 and one's 5 weeks old. Wow, congratulations!" And she has Facebooked Premier Gospel and said, "What would Bethany's top tip be for people who are bringing up pastors' kids?" What's your, from the horse's mouth?
Yeah, okay.
What's your view?
It definitely is the whole let your children explore kind of boundaries. Don't necessarily put the pressure on them constantly to be perfect, and obviously it's really important for them to go to church, but I feel if there's a constant drilling into them of you must go to the youth work on a Friday night, you must go to church on a Sunday, you must participate in all the activities a church has to offer, the kids are more likely to want to rebel. So I think it's important that you have some input into what the children do at church, but you don't force them into doing everything. And I also think it's important to really make time for your family, because their church life is so busy, and it can be you have meeting Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, the kids are out at the youth group on the Friday night, you get the Saturday, and Sunday you have people around for lunch from the church. So it's really making sure you do have time with your family.
Definitely. I think you've put that at the central. You're saying about neglect, feeling like maybe your dad hasn't got time for you and stuff. Like, how has your relationship developed over, your childhood with that? Like, have you been more open to chat to your dad about the problems you faced in your article that you've written?
Yeah, well, I'm quite an open person anyway.
Brilliant.
So if I am having a problem like with my dad, or if I do feel like he's putting too much pressure on himself, I will tell him.
Yeah.
Not everybody will be like that, and some people may go into a shell and become really quiet, and that's when I think some children could rebel, because they think my parents aren't going to listen to me anyway. So any advice to pastors' kids listening is to really be open with your parents. Tell them how you're feeling. It may make them feel a bit upset, or make you upset too.
Yeah.
But hopefully they'll take that on board.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing just a little bit about your story, Bethany. Okay. It's great to have you in the studio. Also, shout out to Rose, who's listening in. I know.
Hi,
I got
Rose.
your tweet. Hi. Hello, how you doing? And also shout out to Bethany's mum, who's in the studio. Nice to see you. I can see you, no one else can, because it's radio. But anyway, we'll be back after a few songs. These are some songs that Bethany has chosen personally, and we're going to talk more about what they mean to her and her journey of being a PK, aka pastor's kid. Don't go away. This is Awkward with me, Lucy.
Call 020 7316 0101. Text Gospel to 66777 or tweet at Premier Gospel.
That's right, you're tuned in to Premier Gospel Music for Life, and this is Awkward, the show that gives honest answers to awkward questions. This is yours truly, Lucy, here with you till 7 o'clock. So today we have a very special guest in the studio who is talking to me about what's it really like to be a PK. What's that, you ask? Well, a pastor's kid. We're talking about the ups and the downs, the challenges and the good times. So, hi Bethany, how's it going?
Hi, it's good, thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing a bit of your story before those songs. So I wanted to also do a bit of a shout out to people listening. Shout out to Amosville, who is in Uganda. Thank you very much for plugging the show and saying, hey, if you're a PK, you may need to tune into Premier Gospel now. Thanks for that. Shout out to Thomas Brett as well, who says, Beth, you are doing a very great job on the radio. So thank you for that.
Thank
and
you.
Also shout out to Rebecca, who also had a Facebook comment a few minutes ago. He says, my 2-year-old is dancing around the lounge now with her teddy bear. So that's brilliant. We just had Toby Mac, a bit of Mariah Peters and Britt Nicole. So Bethany, you chose those songs. Tell me more about the story behind them. Like, why do you like those songs?
Okay, well, the first one that was played by Britt Nicole, All This Time, it kind of tells the story of how, as a young girl, I know Britt Nicole wrote that song about her parents' divorce, about how as a young girl she felt very, very upset. She couldn't see why God was doing this to her family, but he brought her through. And I thankfully have never been anything through like that dramatic, but I think that I've been through some things that I sometimes feel like, God, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And especially being in a church and having church involved so much at home, you can have a lot of other people's problems brought in as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that it's a great song that says that no matter what you go through, God is always there, and looking back you can see that. So that's what it says, all this time God has been there. The Toby Mac one,
Get back up
again.
Love that song.
Yeah. So we do lose our way. I mean, I became a Christian when I was 7 years old, so I was very, very young.
Wow.
And I'd say, you know, when you're that young, you have the kind of faith that you have at 7 years old. So, you know, you read your Bible, you do your quiet time. And then at school, everyone knows you go to church and youth group on a Friday night, but that's about it when you're that young, in my experience anyway. And then there was secondary school, where again, I was, just the Christian girl. Everyone knew I went to church on a Sunday. I went to the CU at school. But then when I was about 18 years old, I got into a relationship with a non-Christian, which I guess was my form of rebellion. I didn't do it on purpose to hurt anybody. I guess that was my form of rebellion. And it's kind of the saying, you lose your way, but you get back up again. And that's what happened to me, really. I wasn't completely lost, but I wasn't where I should have been, and now I'm on a much better track. So that was the Toby Mac song.
Brilliant.
And then the Sing
in the Rain by Mariah Peters.
I love that song.
I love that. Thanks so much for introducing
right.
that. But guys, if you're listening, let me know what you think of the songs. Tweet me at Premier Gospel, or post me a message on facebook.com/Premier Gospel. What do you think about these songs that Bethany is sharing? Carry on, Bethany.
Yeah, so check out her album. She's very good. It's on Spotify. But yeah, no, that song, Sing in the Rain, it says, I wish life could be, what was it, pain-free, cloud-free, and always sunny, or something like that.
Okay.
Rain-free, yeah. And I think that, again, is having you have your problems, you have your family's problems, and then being a pastor's kid, you have the church's problems as well.
Wow.
All brought into one. And so that song, you do wish that life could be pain-free for everybody. You wish it could be always sunny for everybody. But it's not. And it's what you do with those problems.
It's what you do in the rain,
and
right?
That's what she said. She said, I've decided to sing in the rain. And I think that's what everybody needs to do. It's not always easy, but yeah, I like that song because of that message.
Wow, thank you so much.
Right.
I love the playlist, you add it tonight, send me some more songs. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bethany, you talked before the break, before the songs, that there is a real feeling of problems, like you said, shared within your family and work. So, like, what's the borderline between work, your dad, and time with your family? Because does it merge into one? I remember you saying to me, actually, before the songs, that a lot of the time you have people come into your house who obviously aren't part of your family, they're part of church family, or people your dad's reaching out to. Like, have you had that experience? Like, what's that like?
I wouldn't say, not of my knowledge anyway, have we ever had anyone come into the house with a problem and share it right there in front of us all.
Yeah.
It's more the fact that when my dad goes out on meetings and he can't tell me where he's going, then I know he's going to meet someone who obviously has a serious problem.
Yeah.
And then when he comes home and shares that with my mum, that can obviously then affect our family life because there's something troubling them. Because I think to be a pastor, you have to have such a open heart and really take on board everybody's problems.
Definitely.
So I think work and family life do merge quite a lot, and you'll find, like, say, for example, if we're, I don't know, doing something on a Saturday, sometimes an email will pop through from someone at church to my dad, maybe asking him for his help or for his prayers. So you do find that time merges quite a bit, yeah. But then there's holiday time, which is nice, and emails are banned.
Emails are banned. Did you hear that, everybody? Emails are banned. Well, let me know if you are a PK yourself, that's a pastor's kid, or maybe you know someone, or maybe you're a parent, maybe you're a pastor who's got like a nice Sunday off, if that's possible, and you're listening to the show. Let me know what it's like, your experience from Bethany's stories. Is it really like that? Is it worse? Is it better? Have you got some funny stories maybe you'd like to share? Let me know what you think. Anyway, Bethany, I really wanted to ask you also about, you said, the story of like maybe going away, maybe from church, or maybe going away from God.
Yeah.
Like, if people are listening in right now who maybe feel in that place, what would you say to them?
I'd say to them that life without God really is you're living for yourself, and I think that it's just a spiral really of you're going down and down and down, and no matter what you try to do, and no matter what you try to fill that empty space with, because it's everyone, I think, has an empty space within them, and the answer to that empty space is God. But people try and fill it with lots of different things like alcohol, partying, shopping, all that kind of stuff, and it will never satisfy you, and it's only God that can satisfy you. So I really would say, if you've gone away from the church, if you're a pastor's kid and you're really hating the church, maybe try and go to a different church. You never know. Go somewhere where you're not a pastor's kid and you can really just be yourself on a different level.
Yeah.
And just get your relationship back on track with God, because he hasn't left you, you've left him.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to remember. He will never leave you.
Don't give up on God, because
No.
he won't give up on you. Well, thank you so much, Bethany, for sharing a bit of your wisdom there and experience. We're going to talk more about the challenges pastors' kids face right after the break. But stay tuned. This is Awkward with me, Lucy Marscal, and my special guest, Bethany Pease. Again, if you have a question you would like to ask Bethany, I'd love to grill her today, so please, whatever you want to ask, please tweet me, you can Facebook or phone me. Here's how you do it.
020 7316 0101. Text gospel to 66777 or tweet at Premier Gospel.
That's right, you're listening to yours truly, Lucy Marscal, on Premier Gospel Music for Life. This is Awkward, the show that gives honest answers to awkward questions. And I've been having a great time here with my special guest in the studio, Bethany Pease. We are talking about the topic of confessions of a pastor's kid. And Bethany is a PK herself. So, Bethany, I wanted to ask you another question, which someone has tweeted me in. Shout out to Rose again. Rose has tweeted me and she said, do you find your faith and upbringing affects your decisions in everyday life?
Yeah, I think it does. Decisions based on, not decisions such as stuff like what to eat for dinner and stuff like that, not those kind of decisions.
Fish and bread, you know.
But decisions, say, for example, when I was younger, there was the whole going out. Do you go out? And then some of my friends would go out and then stay over at like a boy's house kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I have the open relationship, thankfully, with my parents, so I can talk to them about that stuff. So yeah, my upbringing does affect my decisions, because I tend to talk through my decision making with my parents. And then my faith does affect my decisions as well. So, for example, I'm recently just got a place at university.
Congratulations!
Thank you. So I had to really pray about that, because I had a bit of a moment between two universities, and one of them mucked me around a little bit, and so I kind of had to really pray about it and say to God, where do you want me? My faith as well, and I think big moral decisions as well, or moral ethics in life as well. If someone asks me about that, then my faith will come into that.
Wow, well, thank you for sharing more about your faith. Another question I've got, just from me personally, I thought, if I grew up in a family like yours, where, like you said, church is everywhere, it's all about God, etc., do you ever feel or ever had a time where you thought, this is my faith, I've claimed my faith, because you've always been in a Christian background? Was there ever a time where you aha, this is my faith, or you felt, oh no, it's more my dad's kind of faith?
Okay, yeah, well, that's only really just happened recently that I've really made my faith my own. When I was younger, it was just going along to church, and that was my faith. I'd go along to church, I'd go to the youth group, and then, as I brought up earlier, I was in a relationship with a non-Christian, fell in love, and then when that ended, I felt like my world was shattered, basically. So for some funny reason, God took me to Australia, and there in Australia, I finally realised that you don't need man, you don't need woman to complete you, and you don't need to rely on them. It's only God really you can rely on, and He's been there throughout my whole journey, and He's never left me, as that song said by Britt Nicole.
Yeah.
That was when my faith really became my own, about March last year.
Wow, yeah. What an amazing story. I think we're going to have to unpack that a bit more. So, you said your faith then was about, you're 7, you kind of had that awareness of Jesus being real and Jesus, being in your life. How do you find your relationships different now that you feel you've claimed it?
Okay, well, I now grasp more of what it means that Jesus died for me. Because when you're 7, that's hammered into you at Sunday school, Jesus died for you, and you just kind of accept it. But now that's a massive thing, that's a huge thing, that God would send. It's like a father sending a son to die for you. It's massive. So I think I finally grasped that. And then also, I see God as more of a father and a friend now. So literally talk to Him about anything, while it was prayers before bedtime, prayers in the morning.
It was a bit more like ritual.
Yeah, but now it's more like a really good friendship and relationship, which is what Christians should have. It should be a relationship, with God.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think also it must be really hard if you're in that place where you feel you can't approach God, or you feel, oh, I am a PK, I'm supposed to be this kind of perfect Christian or something. Like you said, though, we're not. It's not about being perfect. But what would you say to someone who maybe is going through that situation? So it could be, a relationship. They think, oh gosh, I'm not sure about this, or you just feel like you're putting a wall up against God. Like, what would you say?
Well, yeah, because when you are doing something that you know in your heart is against God and you know it, you can feel that there's this brick wall between you and God. And every time you try and pray, or every time you try and sing a song of praise, that brick wall kind of gets in the way. So I'd really say to those people to pray to God to break down those walls for them, and just ask him to get back in their lives, really, because it's only him that can turn their lives around. They can do self-help books, they can do all that kind of stuff. Books. Not promoting those, but it's only God at the end of the day that can turn a person's life around. But it's up to them if they let him in. There's a verse, I think, that knock and the door will be open unto you, but if you don't knock, then
door's not open.
It's not open. So,
and what if you're a parent or a youth worker? Because it's quite hard to see, your child going through whatever they're going through at rebellious stage, whether they're a PK or not. I know people listening from different parts of their faith journey. So, what would you say to a pastor's, a pastor and a pastor's wife who've got lots of kids?
Lots of kids.
Yeah, maybe lots of kids.
In my experience, parents are always right.
Wow. Straight from the horse's mouth. Yeah. Bethany's mum is in the studio, so she's like, yeah, I'm right.
But I know for some children that won't be the case. Their parents will not be right. However, I do think parents have a special kind of, I don't know what to call it.
Bond?
Vibe. No,
vibe.
Vibe, bond is probably a better word, with their kids, that they can really tell what their kid is going through, and so I'd really encourage the parents to not harass the child about whatever they're doing, because that's going to make them push you away further and rebel further. But maybe just have a general conversation. It doesn't need to be a why are you doing this, why are you doing that, just a conversation. Maybe get someone of their friends at church, the kids' friends at church, if they know that they're strong in their faith, to get alongside them, and pray for them.
Yes, I think prayer is the most important thing, isn't it? Because God's got them in your hands, even if you feel out of control, right? Straight to God. Well, thank you, Bethany, for sharing a bit of your story and a bit of your wisdom as well, your advice. Okay. We're going to chat more about it, though, and more about some stories after a few songs and a break. But again, if you have any questions you want me to ask Bethany, or you just want to have a comment about what it's really like to be a PK, let me know. Here's how you get in touch.
7316 0101. Text gospel to 66777 or tweet at Premier Gospel.
You're listening to Premier Gospel.
Music for life. Awkward with Lucy Maskell. Sponsored by Urban Saints. Changing the future, one life at a time.
That's right, this is Awkward, the show that gives honest answers to awkward questions, and I'm back with my special guest, Bethany Pease, talking about what's it really like to be a PK, that's a pastor's kid. So Bethany, I would love you to tell me more about, what's it like to be a PK? Tell me it straight.
Really like?
Yeah, what's it really like? Tell it to me straight.
Okay, so Sundays, when you wake up on a Sunday morning, you're either really tired, you've got a bit of a sore throat, bit of a headache, whatever it is, or you're just feeling extra emotional. Maybe something's happened the night before, you never know. Sometimes you feel like you have to go into the church and put on like a mask over you.
Wow.
To kind of...
What do you mean by that? Like, do you mean you have to be like pretend everything's okay?
Pretend to be happy, pretend to be like, my life's great.
I love God,
yeah. That kind of thing. But when, sometimes you can be feeling like, oh, I just really want to curl up in that corner by the heater and cry. And of course I still love God, but sometimes it's hard. Some days it's harder to worship God than others. But I find whenever I go into church in that mood, something happens in a sermon and God will speak to me, and then I'll come out of the church really happy. So that's really good. Also, being a pastor's kid, I feel like at the youth group when I was much younger, I don't go to one anymore because I'm too old.
Yeah, you're so old at the age of 20. Yeah,
I know. I would feel like I'd have to maybe I put this pressure on myself. I probably did, but that I had to put on an act. Because sometimes I didn't really enjoy the youth work, and there did come a point on when some of the older youth group, I decided not to go anymore. And I think that was met with a bit of the pastor's kid isn't going to the youth work.
Was it a bit awkward?
That was awkward.
Yeah, was it a bit awkward?
It was a little bit awkward because I felt that I had to explain myself. I think I even sent an email to the leaders explaining why I didn't go to the youth group anymore, which really, okay, maybe that was a good thing, a courteous thing of me to do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yeah, so there's the whole youth group thing. As a pastor's kid, you feel inclined to go, you feel inclined to get involved in everything.
It's like a pressure, like you said, you have to support things. Even if you feel, like you said, on the inside, you're like, I don't enjoy this, or I find this is boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as I said, I think I put that pressure on myself. Some other pastors' kids, sadly, their churches will be putting that pressure on them. And their churches will be looking down on them saying, why are they wearing that? Why have they got their hair like that? Why have they dyed their hair pink? That kind of thing.
Why not? Pink is great.
Exactly,
Pink is the colour of Awkward logo, by the way, guys.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Pink is awesome.
I've been quite fortunate, really, with my church, that I have got to the point now where I do feel I can be myself.
Brilliant.
But a few years ago, that wasn't the case.
What
So-
changed? What happened?
Me, I changed.
Okay.
I kind of had to get that negativity out of my mind that not everything is about me, basically. I think I wrote that in the blog I wrote for Fresh Thoughts.
Yeah, so
about
guys,
being a
I'll
pastor's kid.
post the link to Bethany's blog, what she's written for Fresh Thoughts and Magazine help run. So carry on.
Yeah, that, I thought that family life should be about me, and it should be about the church. Not that the church life had to be about me, but I guess because my dad was up the front, I kind of thought that maybe people should have more of an interest in me.
Yeah.
And that's not the case. People go to church to worship God, and part of my dad's job is to help people and to take their problems on board. And I think my whole attitude had to change, and then I realised that I could be myself, and everyone in the church wasn't out to get me, kind of thing.
Exactly, like
Yeah.
you said, you're your own person.
Exactly.
I mean, few people have tweeted in, shout out to everybody who has, all the way, if you're in America at the moment, shout out to you. If you're in Europe, you're in Asia, thanks for listening. We're in Africa. We have listeners everywhere, love it. Well, I've had some few tweets in saying, growing up at PK, like the story of my life is the whole, like feeling like I've got to be in the spotlight all the time, or having extra privileges or extra presents. And someone else said to me through Twitter as well, tweet me at Premier Gospel if you'd like a comment or shout out, who said that they feel when they listen to certain songs about being a pastor's kid, because there's a few actually within Christian hip hop,
Yeah.
actually feeling like, wow, you must feel so neglected, feel like you are not the centre of attention, you feel like people are busy, like your dad or your mum is busy,
Yeah.
and they love you, but they just don't have time because they're going to another church meeting or another event to do
Yeah.
with church. Like, what's your experience of that?
I do think that's true. I don't really like the word neglect, because for me that comes with abuse and that kind of thing. But I do think that you can feel neglected, but you're not actually being neglected. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, so you're loved, but it's just the attention and time.
Yeah. But I do think, yes, church meetings, planning for the church on a Sunday morning, everything is quite church revolved. So yeah, it can feel like, oh, can we just talk about something other than church for once, please? That's what it can feel like. Or, oh, can we just go out and forget about everyone else in the church and have just us family time? And I've been fortunate enough to have that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it must be really difficult for those pastors' kids who genuinely feel constantly, my parents do not have any time in the world for me. That must be really difficult.
Absolutely.
For them.
How did you overcome that difficulty, or maybe still are, with your dad now? Like, did you sit down and talk to him, or did he realise it was happening? Or
I think there was one time a few years back that the family life was absolutely hectic. So yeah, I did speak to my parents about it. I probably more sobbed it than spoke it.
Aww.
And I think also my grandparents got involved as well.
Did they? Wow.
I think so. They
Showdown.
They just said something and said, take time, chill a bit, and life has slowed down a bit. And obviously, my dad's job is a church leader, so there are going to be church meetings, such as if my dad was a police officer, there'd be meetings he had to go to for that.
Exactly.
I think it's just because being a pastor, as I said earlier, you have the open heart, you take everybody's problems on board, and they can get in the way of family life. But as you mature and grow up as a pastor's kid, you soon realise that that's what needs to be done.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I have a few more questions for you.
Okay.
After a few songs.
Okay.
So we'll come back after some Capital Kings and a bit of an Andy Mineo remix. And yes, if you've got any more questions for Bethany, feel free to tweet us at Premier Gospel, and we can read out a shout out too if you got any. I just want to say thank you so much to Emma, who has Facebooked us at facebook.com/Premier Gospel. She says she's really enjoying listening to you, Bethany. It's great.
Thank you, Emma.
That's a lovely comment. And she says she appreciates your honesty. Just know what an example you are to my children who grew up in the church.
Oh, thank you.
That's very sweet. Well, if you're a parent, youth worker, let me know where you are, and let me know if you need any advice on this, because you can hear it straight from a PK herself, Bethany Pease. This is Awkward with me, Lucy Maskell, here till 7. Stay tuned. That's right, it's Lucy Maskell on Premier Gospel Music for Life. This is Awkward, the show that gives honest answers to awkward questions, broadcasting all the way from London, UK. Shout out to everybody listening in Uganda, shout out to everybody listening in London as well. So, Bethany, thank you so much for coming on the show to talk more about being a PK, being a pastor's kid. I've had some really interesting tweets, and I've had some very interesting texts, etc. Nathaniel, he has tweeted me, and he said, spotlight, scrutiny, special privileges, and extra presents. Story of my life.
Yeah, I agree
Thank
with that.
God for that spiritual upbringing, though. Could you tell me more about the good things then about that? Because this guy said to me, hey, you know, you get lots of extra things. Like, what's he talking about?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Like, at Christmas time, it's great. People will come around with big bags, and there'll be big boxes of chocolates or boxes of biscuits, and, like, nice biscuits, too.
Yeah,
and,
I love nice biscuits.
I love nice biscuits.
Yeah, me too.
And there's a really lovely family at our church that do us, like, a big package of stuff like teas and biscuits and drinks.
You're
and
making me hungry, eh?
Sorry.
That's all right.
But, yeah, you know, people are really generous. And, you know, recently we needed some money for something, and an envelope of money came through the post, but it had no name on it. And, you know, it's just that really, I know it shouldn't, but it really does restore your faith in people and makes you think, yeah, they really do care about us. And they really, for me, I want them to care about my dad, because he goes through such a lot. And to see something like that really makes me emotional and so thankful. Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you to everybody who has supplied tea and biscuits to
yes, thank you very much, everyone.
Every PK's family. It's very British and very needed. Anyway, we'll go back into our discussion. Before the songs, before the break, we talked about, like you said, having a dad who is doing so much great things for God, but doesn't always have time for you as a child or, you know, as a family. So would you tell me more about your story with that?
Yeah, okay. So I guess that having a dad who is for God, if you don't have that faith yourself, can seem really difficult, and it can seem, why is he spending all his time with God and serving God's people when I have problems of my own?
Yeah.
That can seem really frustrating. So to have, when you finally grasp that faith by yourself, and, you know, I encourage any PK listening now who feels that they're only going along to church because of their parents.
Yeah, listen up.
To really, you know, question why they're going to church, really question where they are with God. And if they don't feel happy at their church, you need to speak to someone about it. And, you know, I felt like I could never approach anyone and say, look, I need prayer for this, because I feel they'd go and run and tell my parents straight away.
Yeah.
Especially in, like, the youth group, if I, you know, was going through something at school or with a boy or whatever, I felt like I really couldn't go to anyone, because everyone knows my parents, everyone's going to go and tell them. And what you have to realise is people respect you as a person, and not everybody is going to link everything back to your dad or your mum straight away, and you need to find that one person you trust and go to them and say, look, I really need help with this, I really need prayer for this. And, you know, if they are a really good, decent, honest Christian person, they won't go and run and tell your mum and dad. So I really hope that every PK out there can find someone like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've got a lot of lovely people in your life,
I do,
right?
Yes. Yeah, I do have loads.
Great. Shout out to those people.
Oh, so many. Where do I begin? My lovely family. Got my grandparents, got, you know, my dad's parents, my mum's parents, got my older sister, my younger sister, my best friends. I've got so many.
Ooh.
So many.
Shout out to them.
Shout out to them all.
Yeah, for supporting Bethany. So we also talked before the break about you know, your struggle, your journey, where you had this faith, but you said it was more your dad's.
Yeah.
And then you claimed it as yourself because God put you on this journey.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that. Tell us all the listeners.
All about the journey?
The journey.
The journey.
Yeah, like you said, you felt God wanted you to go through that, to learn something.
I think he did. Yeah,
You know?
I really think he did. I mean, I've had two relationships in my life, and one of those relationships was when I was quite young, but that boy was a Christian as well. And so when that ended, I was upset, but I didn't really feel like I learned anything from it. With the second relationship I went through, I really felt like I had to go through it because my faith wasn't going anywhere. And I really think God used that experience to wake me up a bit and to make me realise that I'm living for Him, I'm not living for man. I'm living in this world, but I don't have to be of this world.
Yeah.
And so... Deep. Do I? Were you going to say something?
No, I just said that's deep.
Oh, that's deep. Oh, it is quite deep. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It's good. It's all about.
Yeah. And I think that, and the experience happened to me really when I was on a beach in Australia. So I was miles away from home. I was, standing on this beach by myself, and I was looking out across the sea, and I really just felt that God was saying, you don't need anybody else. You've got me. I had to trust on Him to get me to the other side of the world for a starter, which was great. And also, I needed a lesson in patience and a flight to Australia. If anyone needs a lesson in patience,
it's like 24 hours.
36.
36
hours for where I was going.
Shout out to everyone in Australia who's listening.
Yeah.
We applaud you upside down there. Carry on.
Yeah, so it was there that my faith was really founded in me. And in my blogs, I write about my blogs, and I wrote all about my time in Australia. And hopefully, if people can read those, they'll see a difference from my first blog post to my very last blog post. My first blog post, I was upset, I was emotional. I didn't really know in which direction my life was heading. And then my last blog post, I think I said something like, I still don't know which direction my life's going to take, but I know that I've got God in it, and I know that He will lead me wherever He wants me to go. And I felt happier, and I felt more in love with God than I ever had done. So yeah, for some strange reason, it took a breakup and a trip to Australia for me to, find God properly. I knew about Him, but I hadn't really had that relationship with Him. So yeah.
Wow, thank you so much for your openness.
Okay.
And as I echo all the listeners who've Facebook tweeted in, like, your honesty and your transparency is really amazing.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that.
That's okay. I would say to PKs to be honest and transparent. I know it can be really, really difficult, but if you can be honest and transparent with your parents or with someone at church, your life will get a lot easier.
Definitely. It's like when we're true to other people, we're true to ourselves and true to God, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Also, at the beginning of the show, if you missed this beginning of the show, where have you been? We had some songs that Bethany played, stuff by Toby Matt, Britt Nicole, Mariah Peters, awesome songs. And you chatted about how they helped you through your time, your struggle of, growing up as a PK.
Yeah.
Are there any other outlets that have helped? You said you got your blog. I think you've told me you're very much into singing.
I am into
right?
singing, yes. I sing in the music group at church. I also do shows at Lantern Arts Centre in Rains Park. Go check out their shows, they're great. I don't think I realised, but I think I probably do channel a lot of my emotion into my performing. I think it's great for everybody to have an outlet. Like my dad, who's a pastor, plays football, and that's how he gets all his,
What a lad.
Yeah, gets all his, frustrations and stuff out. I think playing football, for me, it would be singing, definitely.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awkward. Honest answers to awkward questions with Lucy Maskell. Sponsored by Urban Saints.
That's right, it's Awkward, the show that gives honest answers to awkward questions. It's Lucy Maskell here with you till 7 o'clock. I can't believe how fast the show has gone, but it's been great. I've got Bethany in the studio with me talking about what it's like to be a pastor's kid, a PK. So Bethany, I would like to say you have brought so much honesty, so much wisdom, and
you.
Everybody agrees with me in saying you're awesome. So what can you leave with us? Like, what advice would you give to youth workers, parents, etc., church family who have a lot of PKs in their church?
Okay, I'd say, the most important thing you can do for pastor kids, pastors' families, is to pray for them, because, power of prayer, but also just having a real, just genuine conversation with them all. Try and make it not about church stuff if you can, if that's possible. Just see what they're doing at school, what they're doing at college, how their life's going, what they do like to do at the weekend. Just make them feel like they're any other member of the church, really. Don't put them up on a pedestal, because they don't really want to be on that pedestal. They want to be treated as anybody else who would walk in through a church gate with a problem. So, treat them as a normal human being. Don't put them on the pedestal. Pray for them. Maybe even arrange to meet up with them for a coffee, and just really get alongside them and become their friend.
Brilliant. And how about to all the PKs who are listening? Shout out to all the PKs who are listening across the world. You're one family. What would you say to PKs who are going through stuff?
I think they need to realise they're not alone. There's so many PKs out there. Quite a few of us going through the same thing. But also what you need to realise is that people aren't against you. God isn't against you. And you need to get away from that negativity and realise that there's people in the church who love you and will be praying for you, and you may never know those people are praying for you, and you may not even know that they love you that much. But you need to really step away from the negativity and think, what can I do about myself? Before passing the blame to others and thinking, oh, they're putting me under so much pressure. Really
know that you're accepted, isn't it?
Yeah, except just know you're accepted, and really evaluate yourself before you then pass the judgment on to others, thinking they're making me feel like this. I know it can be difficult, but be open, be honest, and just give people a chance, because they may actually really care about you.
Definitely. And you were talking before actually about your fantastic blog.
Yes.
That's been a great outlet for you, like you said, with your feelings. Coming back from Australia, being in England, heading off to uni soon. So any more tips with that? Any more advice from your blog?
I mean, I write about anything and anything, really, anything and everything on my blog. From my travels in Australia to how I'm feeling, to breakups, to all kinds of stuff. And I do recommend to PKs get a journal, because I find writing down your feelings, if you don't feel you can express those feelings to anybody else, is a great way to outlet, and to really think, you read back in a few years' time, you think, I was being ridiculous thinking of that. So but do check out my blog, which is Bethany Confessions of a Pastor's Kid.blogspot.co.uk. Did I get it right?
Yes, you did.
Okay,
and you can also follow Bethany on Twitter at Bethany Peas.
Indeed. And if you have anything you want me to write about, then just tweet me and let me know.
Yes, so again, that's Bethany Confessions of a Pastor's Kid.blogspot.co.uk, excuse me, and at Bethany Peas on Twitter. Well, it's been really great having you in the studio, Bethany.
Thank you
for
having me.
And shout out to you, Bethany's mum, as well.
Yeah. Hi, Mummy.
Hello, in the background, a bit of wave. Well, thank you so much for listening in to everybody who has enjoyed the show, or maybe not enjoyed the show. Let me know. Tweet me at Premier Gospel, go to facebook.com/Premier Gospel, or you can listen back to the podcast. We're going to have this on the official Premier Gospel one. That is mixcloud.com/awkward show. So check out for previous podcasts, previous episodes. We've had different episodes on sex and relationships. We've had stuff on online dating, with stuff about awkward things in silence and Lent. We've also had stuff about eating disorders. So if you've liked the show, or maybe you haven't, check out mixcloud.com/awkward show. Anyway, I'm going to leave you, and I'm going to give you a bit of a trail for next week. Next week involves a lot of great issues with youth work, about working with people in gangs, like what do we do as youth workers when we have someone in our youth group who has a knife, or maybe has a gun, or just has a lot of issues with authority. I'm going to be talking to a brilliant youth worker about his experience. So tune in next Sunday from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. only on Premier Gospel.